The morning of Harold's funeral, I hadn't eaten a real meal in 4 days. I was standing in the kitchen in my good black dress 1 hour before the car came, and I thought, what's the point of any of this now? I was 63 years old, and the person I had cooked for every day for 41 years was gone. I could have stopped there. A lot of women do. Instead, I made oatmeal. That was 2006. I'm 91 now. And that bowl, that stubborn, unremarkable bowl, is part of why I'm still here and still carrying my own groceries. I'm going to tell you the 3 things, not because they're surprising, because you already know them and you've been deciding they don't apply to you yet. The morning of Harold's funeral, I realized I hadn't eaten a real meal in 4 days. Not because I forgot, because I had stopped caring whether I did. I was standing in the kitchen in my good black dress an hour before the car was coming. And I looked at the stove and I thought, what's the point of any of this now? Not dramatically, not as a crisis, just as a flat fact. The way you know that the weather had changed. Harold was gone. I was 63 years old, and the person I had cooked for every day for 41 years was in a box. And the kitchen felt like a stage set for a life that no longer had a cast. I stood there for a long time. And then I made oatmeal. Not because I was hungry, not because anyone told me to, because something in me, some stubborn, unreasonable part that I did not choose and cannot fully explain, decided that the alternative was to begin disappearing. And I had seen enough people disappear to know what the early stages looked like. You stop eating properly. Then you stop moving. Then you stop leaving the house. Then one day, someone comes to check on you, and you've become smaller in every direction. And you say you're fine, and you mostly mean it, because you've forgotten what not fine felt like before you got used to it. I made oatmeal. I sat at the table. I ate it. That was 2006. I am 91 years old, and I want to tell you that the decision I made that morning, not the dramatic one, not the grief, but the small, stubborn one about breakfast, is the one I am still living inside. I was a home economics teacher for 31 years at Jefferson High School in Dayton, Ohio. I taught girls and later boys when the curriculum changed how to cook real food, not complicated food, real food, the kind that comes from ingredients you can name, prepared with attention, eaten at a table with other people. I believed in it the way some people believe in other things. I still do. Harold was an electrician, steady, practical, the kind of man who fixed things without being asked and never needed to be thanked for it. We bought our house on Crescent Avenue in 1961, and I have not left it. 54 years in the same kitchen, the same windows, the same garden where I still grow tomatoes and one stubborn rosemary bush that has survived things I cannot account for. We ate well. That was not an accident. It was a daily decision. The same way anything worth having is a daily decision. Breakfast at 7 or real lunch. Dinner together at the table. No television. The food made from what was in season and what was affordable and what I knew how to do with my hands. Hal used to say I could make anything taste like it was supposed to taste. I took that as the highest compliment I ever received. He died at 71, heart attack, fast, which I am told is a mercy. Though I am not sure mercy is the right word for something that leaves the other person standing alone in a kitchen on a Tuesday morning wondering what the point of the stove is. The doctor told us beforehand Not long before, but enough before that we knew that Harold's heart had been under strain for years. The diet in his 40s and 50s, the weight that came with a desk job after his knees went, the years of eating what was easy rather than what was right. He knew, I knew. We talked about it, and then we ordered the pizza anyway because we were tired, because it was Thursday, because we thought there was more time than there was. There is always less time than you think. In the weeks after the funeral, the casseroles arrived. This is what neighbors do. They cook for you, which is a kindness I understand completely and accept it with genuine gratitude. But casseroles are not what I would have chosen. And after 3 weeks, I put the last one in the freezer and went back to cooking for myself. My daughter thought this was a bad sign. She called it isolating. She wanted me to come stay with her in Cleveland, where she would take care of me, which translated to where she would make the decisions about what I ate and when and how much, because grief had made her frightened, and frightened people manage things. I stayed in Dayton. I kept my kitchen. I made my oatmeal every morning in the blue ceramic bowl I've used since 1987. The one with the small chip on the rim that my daughter tried to replace with a nicer one from her cabinet. And I told her thank you and kept the one I had, because the one I had was mine and I knew exactly where the chip was, and it had never once bothered me. My daughter meant well. She still means well. But there is a particular danger in letting other people decide that you need to be protected from your own life. And I spotted it early enough to sidestep it. Ruth Beckman lived 3 houses down and had been my closest friend since 1979. We were the same age, had the same neighborhood, had buried husbands within 4 years of each other, and Ruth, in her late 60s, made a decision I watched her make in real time and could not talk her out of. She decided she had earned the right to stop being careful. She said it exactly like that. Francis, I have been careful my whole life, and I am tired of it. She stopped cooking, started eating whatever required the least effort, packaged things, delivery, whatever her son brought when he visited. She stopped walking when her knees hurt, instead of walking through the hurt the way you have to in order to keep the knees functional at all. She stopped the small disciplines, the water, the vegetables, the movement, one at a time, each one feeling like a reasonable accommodation to age, and all of them together adding up to something that was not accommodation but surrender. She did not mean to surrender. She meant to rest. I understood the feeling. I just did not agree with the conclusion. I am not going to give you a lecture about nutrition. I am 91 years old and I have no patience for lectures about things that can be said plainly. Here is what I eat every single day, and here is why, and here is what I know from 9 decades of paying attention to what a body does when you treat it with consistency. The first thing is oatmeal every morning. Not instant, rolled oats, stovetop. The kind that takes 8 minutes and requires you to stand at the stove and stir. I have been making it in the same pot since 1989. The pot has a particular weight that I know the way I know my own hands. I started eating oatmeal every morning in 1971. My mother had died the year before of a stroke. She was 67, which seemed old to me then and seems very young to me now. And her doctor, in one of those conversations that happens after the fact and therefore cannot help the person it was about, told our family that chronic inflammation had likely played a role. Poor circulation, years of the wrong foods, a body that had been asked to run on fuel it couldn't properly process. I was 38 years old. I had 2 children in school and a husband and a full-time job, and approximately no time to think about my own longevity. But something about standing in that doctor's office, holding my mother's medical history like a document I hadn't known existed, made me decide that I was going to pay attention to what I put in my body before someone was delivering the same speech about me. Oatmeal. Every morning. It cost nothing. It took 8 minutes. It was the kind of decision that feels small when you make it and turns out to have been one of the largest things you did. I put nothing sweet on it. A spoonful of ground flaxseed. I started that in 1993 when I read about it in a medical journal at the public library, which is where I did my research before research became something you could do in your pajamas. A handful of blueberries when they're in season. A few walnuts, which I keep in a glass jar in the refrigerator because I read somewhere that light degrades them, and I see no reason to take unnecessary risks. Harold did not eat oatmeal. Harold ate eggs and toast and occasionally cereal from a box with a cartoon on it. I never pushed him. You cannot push a person into taking care of themselves. I learned that from 31 years in a classroom and confirmed it in 41 years of marriage. All you can do is keep doing the thing yourself and be honest about why. The blue ceramic bowl with the chip on the rim. Every morning since 1987, when the bowl I'd been using before finally cracked and I replaced it at a shop on 5th Street that has since closed. My daughter sees it as an eccentricity. I see it as a relationship. I know exactly where to hold it so the heat transfers evenly through my hands. And there is something in beginning each day with a familiar object and a familiar act that I believe is not merely psychological, but physical. The body responds to ritual the way it responds to sleep. It settles. It knows what's coming. It prepares. The second thing is an egg. 1 egg every day, cooked simply, soft boiled or scrambled in a small pan with nothing but a bit of olive oil. I have been doing this since I was a young woman, and I have never stopped, despite the decades when doctors were telling everyone that eggs were dangerous, which turned out to be, as many confident proclamations turned out to be, an overcorrection that the evidence did not fully support. I stayed with the egg, not because I was stubborn, though I am, but because I trusted my body's response more than I trusted the consensus of people who had not been paying attention to my body for 50 years. My energy was good. My weight was stable. My mind was clear. When something is working, you need a compelling reason to stop it, and everyone is saying this now is not a compelling reason. The egg is protein. It is fat of the kind a body at my age needs in order to maintain muscle, which is the thing you most desperately need to maintain as you get older, and the thing most people stop fighting for because the fight gets harder and they decide the result isn't worth it. It is worth it. Muscle is what lets you carry your own groceries. Muscle is what lets you walk to the corner store and back without holding on to anything. Muscle is what stood me up from the kitchen floor in 2019 when I slipped on a wet towel and went down hard and lay there for a moment, taking stock of what was broken, which was nothing as it turned out, and then got myself up without calling anyone. I did not tell my daughter about the fall for 3 months. She would have wanted to install things in my bathroom, and the bathroom does not need things installed in it. What it needs is someone who has maintained enough strength in her legs to get up off the floor. That someone is me, because of the egg and the oatmeal and the third thing. The third thing is a vegetable at every meal. Not a specific vegetable, not a regime or a color chart or a particular category the internet has decided is superior this year. A vegetable, something that grew in the ground or on a vine, cooked simply or eaten as it is. Every meal, every day, for as long as I can remember, choosing my own food. I grew up in a house where this was not unusual. My mother cooked from the garden. Her mother cooked from the garden. Vegetables were not a health decision, but a fact of life. What I have done differently from many people my age is refuse to let that habit erode when it became inconvenient. When Harold died and cooking for one felt pointless. When my knees made standing at the counter for a long time harder. When my children started suggesting that perhaps I shouldn't be operating the stove unsupervised. A suggestion I received with the courtesy it deserved, which was very little. The vegetables keep the system moving. That is not poetic, but it is true. Digestion at 91 requires active maintenance. The way an old house requires maintenance. You cannot ignore it and expect it to function. You tend to it. You give it what it needs. You do not decide because you are tired or because it is easier not to that the tending is no longer worth doing. My garden still produces tomatoes in summer. In winter, I use what is at the store. Whatever is fresh, whatever I can afford, whatever I can carry home in my own bag from the corner store 2 blocks away, which I walk to twice a week because the walking is as important as the vegetables, and they are both non-negotiable. Ruth is at Meadowbrook now. The assisted living facility on the east side, the one with the nice grounds and the activities calendar, I visit when I can. She is 88 and she is alive and she is cared for. She tells me she wishes she had listened. I don't say anything when she says that. There is nothing useful to say. She made the choices she made because they felt reasonable at the time. And they were reasonable in the moment. And the moments added up. Every choice adds up. That is not a warning. It is just the mechanism. I am going to tell you what I actually think, and you can do with it what you want. Most people do not fail to take care of themselves because they don't know what to do. They know what to do. Oatmeal is not a secret. Vegetables are not a revelation. The information is not what's missing. What's missing is the decision that it still matters. Because somewhere along the way, in your 50s or your 60s, or whenever the tiredness of life reaches a certain level, people make a quiet internal agreement with themselves that they have reached the age of accommodation, that the fight to maintain the body is a fight for younger people, that the disciplines of earlier decades were for a self who needed to perform, to work, to impress, and that self is gone now. So the disciplines can go with it. I understand that feeling. I had it myself the morning of Harold's funeral. Standing in the kitchen in my good black dress, I felt the pull of it, the logic of it even. What's the point? The point is what comes after. Not the drama, not the medical events, not the diagnosis, though those matter. The day-to-day texture of what your body can do. Whether you can walk to the store, whether you can carry your own bag, whether you can get up off the floor without calling anyone, whether you are someone who moves through the world or someone who is moved through it. That is what you are choosing. Not abstractly, not in some future scenario, but right now, today, in the specific decision you make about what to eat for breakfast, and whether you walk to the place that is 2 blocks away or drive because driving is easier. I see it in the people around me. My neighbor's son, late 40s, works from home, eats at his desk, moves between the desk and the couch and the car, who tells me he will start being more careful when things slow down. Things do not slow down. That is not how time works. You do not get a quieter chapter in which to establish the habits you should have established in the busy chapter. You establish them in the busy chapter, imperfectly and with difficulty, or you arrive at my age with a body that reflects the years of not establishing them. I am not judging him. I am describing what I have watched happen to people who made the same calculation. People I loved. People who were intelligent and kind and had every intention of getting around to it. Harold among them. On a Tuesday recently, I cannot tell you the exact day. The days blur a little at 91, which I accept as one of the reasonable taxes of a long life. I was at the corner store with my bag, and the young man at the counter offered to carry it home for me. I said no thank you. He looked surprised. I am 91 years old, and I was carrying a bag that had in it oatmeal and eggs and 2 bunches of beets, which are heavy. He expected me to say yes. I walked home 2 blocks with the bag because I could. And because I could, because of the 40 years of mornings that looked exactly like that morning. The oatmeal, the egg, the vegetables, the refusal to decide that I was past the point where any of it mattered. The bag was heavy. My shoulders felt it. I was glad they could. Here's what I want you to do today. Not eventually. Today. Eat 1 real meal. Not something from a bag or a box or a delivery app. 1 meal that you made from ingredients you can name. Eaten, sitting down, without looking at a screen. That's it, just today. See what it feels like to do the simple thing with intention, the way your body was designed to be fed. And then tomorrow morning, if you want, do it again. Not for me, not for any abstract version of your future self. For the version of yourself that wants to walk to the corner store at 91 and carry the bag home without help. That person is still possible. I am the proof of it. Tell me in the comments, what did you eat for breakfast today? Because the answer to that question is the beginning of this whole thing, and I've been answering it the same way for 50 years.